Hello everybody, welcome to It's Current Year for another quick battle ladder replay. Today played on the River Amaxon map. I am, I guess quite relevantly playing Elizabeth faction, the Last Defenders, led by Kroq Gar, up against the Empire, led by Karl Franz. We will pop it on a pause and have a look at the army my opponent is taking today. So in the front rows, obviously just some spearmen, some cheap front troops. Got a pretty wide formation, giving himself, I guess, a fair bit of room to bounce around with his cavalry, two of which are here, two Empire Knights, and one also out here in the trees, babysitting the Silver Bullets, which are a great unit, but a bit of an interesting deployment here, and you'll see why in a second. Probably just getting a little bit too smart with these guys. Obviously, they have they have stalk, so they're fine to have here in your battle line. And obviously, you've got a front row here. You've got some knights that have mass and can be mobile and protect them. So interesting decision to have them camped out here in the forest. 2 units of great swords, a Jade Wizard who is taking probably the standard kit. Yep, Earthblood, Regrowth, Power Stone, fairly standard kit. A steam tank, which is really cool. Love seeing units like this. They don't see a lot of play, but they're pretty cool. Obviously, being unbreakable as well is pretty fun. So it can be a bit of a pain to deal with. And Karl Franz up in the air, who is taking the Reichland Runefang, Gul Miraz, and obviously all his natural buffs. Over to my forces here, I have 4 units of Chameleon Skinks. These guys are one of, if not the best, I think, skirmishers in the game, particularly for their cost. Obviously, with 68 unit models, they have good damage output, even with a missile strength of only 22, poisoned attacks. But the real winner here is just, obviously with a loose formation and the fact that they have missile resistance of 40, they're just so hard to kill. They're just really resistant to sort of skirmishers and things like archers, I guess, in this matchup, things like crossbowmen and that kind of thing. And obviously with their poison, they can and decent speed of 48, they're hard to catch as well, even for cavalry units. Front line of Skink cohort, fairly cheap, fairly cheerful. They trade reasonably well with state troops for their cost, but they're not really here to kill anything. They're just here to provide some numbers. And obviously with a speed of 46, they can be good for lapping around the flanks and that kind of thing. 2 units of regular Saurus Warriors. I wanted just a little bit of meat in my infantry corps. They trade really well with most state troops, and I have just great leadership, so they're real linebackers in that sense. Speaking of great leadership, Cohort of Zotek, unbreakable, refuse to die mechanic, good armor piercing, and the Star Chamber Guardians in the back. So some regiments of renown here, bringing up the rear, and obviously great stats, really durable. I have taken a Skink Chief of Beast with the Amber Spear and the Manticore Summon. Obviously, went for Amber Spear over Flock of Doom because I figured we might see someone like Karl. We might see even you can take out artillery pieces with Amber Spear, and it's better for sniping unit models. Flock of Doom, I'm a bit on the fence about Flock of Doom, to be honest. My sort of big game hunting pack here, the Feral Carnosaur and Kroq Gar up on Grimlock, who has taken the Hand of the Gods as well as all his native buffs. So they're going to go after, obviously, that steam tank. They're going to be looking for Karl Franz to land, put some damage into him. If you keep these guys together, obviously you can keep this guy buffed up with Cold-Blooded and keep him in the fight, keep him from rampaging. And they're really great at really taking out priority targets. So they're gonna have their work cut out with them, because Karl's obviously a bit of a Chad, bit of a tank himself. But certainly they've got some targets in this fight. So the battle lines are just going to draw up. He's obviously got the artillery piece here, so he's happy to let me come to him. And you see, you'll see here the power of Chameleon Skinks here. Karl Franz in one volley, bang, takes about 300 damage. He's forced to immediately turn back and turn around. Doesn't have a shield block chance, so even with good armor, he does take actually a really impressive amount of damage. Nearly 1,000 damage there from 2 or 3 volleys in. And at this stage, really obviously happy with that in the early game. He hasn't put any damage in. He might even bait out an Earthblood here from the Jade Wizard, which is great. Just get him using his Winds of Magic early. And like I said, he hasn't got any return on that yet. So I don't want to spend too much of my ammo here, obviously, on the Spearmen. They aren't This one's shielded, but I don't think they're getting their shield block chance at the moment. And again, just more fire going in on Karl. He's taken about 1,000 damage at this stage. The Carnosaur and Kroq Gar were going after the steam tank, but I'm going to pull them back through here. I do take a bit of a charge from the Empire Knights, obviously lancing into my skink cohorts, but there are some, you'll see here, obviously they're maybe not getting away as efficiently as they might with the poison of damage of the chameleon skinks, but the steam tank here has managed to evade Kroq Gar and the Carnosaur for now, and as you see here, just a regular regrowth here already being baited out, and Karl's taken about 1,300 damage. That'll more or less put him back up to full, but I'm happy with that at the moment. I'm happy with that damage output in this. He hasn't put any hits into the Feral Carnosaur or into Kroq Gar, so yeah, he's back up to full, but I'm pretty happy with that at this stage. As I was saying in the early game, this is probably just getting a bit smart for his own good here. These guys could be dealing a lot of damage to Kroq Gar and a lot of damage to the Carnosaur at the moment, using the Empire Knights to screen out. Obviously, the steam tank's taken a ton of damage. We see a great Hand of the Gods here going into Karl Franz. Again, he's back down to about 3k health. The steam tank is sort of pulling back through the infantry here, and that's a terror out on this cohorts, the skink cohorts here. But one thing obviously the cohort of Sotek will grind it out and definitely stay in the fight. And they've got a good target here in the great swords. Obviously, these great swords here are going to be I don't really want to use my Star Chamber Guardians. I'm happy just to sort of bunch them up, leave them sitting here. My Saurus Warriors have sort of overchased into the back, and likewise, I don't want to overchase with them and be on Spearmen. I'm bringing them back to the fight. But a unit of Empire Knights here has got into the cookie jar and is starting to really disrupt my chameleon skinks. Karl's even dropping down, so these guys aren't immune to psychology. They are susceptible to terror outs. And Empire Knights in combat will give him a bit of grief. So you see here the Star Chamber Guardians peeling off this combat, coming back. Grimlock, keep saying these Carnosaur's name. Kroq Gar and the Feral Carnosaur are trying to force part through here, but they're just getting caught up on Knight models. The steam tank here is really low, but this Feral Manticore, this Summoned Manticore, unfortunately gets routed off very, very quickly and can't really put any damage into Karl. But you see here, I'm pretty quick to take this opportunity, and I figure, if Karl pulls out here, at the very least, I can maybe work down the steam tank. But my infantry here is pretty solid. Obviously got skink cohorts and Saurus Warriors here, both on great swords, which isn't a great fight, but they will probably just hold them out and just wear them down. The cohort of Sotek are on their last legs, but they've done a good job beating down these great swords, and the Saurus Warriors are just coming back in here to reinforce the fight. Unfortunately, I've had a dropped attack order here with these guys, which is frustrating. They're sitting here and now they're just attacking spears, and a unit of knights here has been a little bit annoying, pushing back these guys. But you see here, with Karl on the ground and him being quite low with the Manticore after him, I figure he's on the ground. I can maybe finish him here with a good Hand of the Gods. And you see, just as he gets in the air, he manages to evade most of the projectiles with 72 HP. So, I mean, if that had full on hit him in the face, he's dead. He's out of the fight. Again, the Feral Manticore takes off after him and doesn't chase him. So he's getting fired at by the Silver Bullets, who are finally getting some value. But I've got Saurus Warriors in here with great leadership. They'll be reasonably good, I guess, just seeing off the Empire Knights. But the great swords in here have finished off the cohort of Sotek and are going to be reasonably efficient at chunking them down. Karl though, and this is where the early regrowth is key, because if this regrowth was coming down now, he'd probably be coming back into the fight with about 2,000 HP, and it doesn't look like this Jade Wizard has any spare Winds of Magic, apart from maybe there you go, it proves me wrong. There's an Earthblood coming down here, but that is a minor Earthblood, and at this stage Karl's sort of out of the fight. He can't really afford to come in back in here, and I've got all 4 units of my Chameleon Skinks, tattered as they are, but still with a decent amount of ammo for this point in the battle, coming back in just to reinforce. There's nothing here that's really going to worry Kroq Gar. There's a few shots in here starting to come in from the Silver Bullets, but look how obstructed they are. They're firing into the trees. They're not getting any value for their shots here. It's just a really interesting choice from my opponent to have held them out there this whole battle. So Carl comes back in, but Kroq Gar's going to turn around, and with one final bite, bang, down goes the Emperor. The Emperor of Man is dead, and the balance of power now, given that my lord is reasonably healthy. Unfortunately, I did get a cold-blooded down right after this guy routed, but with the Skink Chiefs here put in a bit of, or Chameleon Skinks rather, put in a bit of fire into these guys. These guys are luckily going to rally, and with obviously the balance of power now taking into account a semi-healthy Feral Carnosaur and a pretty healthy Kroq Gar. The battle is going to end with the Lizardmen pulling out a relatively Pyrrhic victory over the forces of the Empire. So, as I said in the start, you know, the Silver Bullets don't need to hide in trees. As a straight projectile unit, they tend to get a lot of their shots actually blocked by, you know, tree terrain. And, you know, if I'd have taken a solar engine with a Bastillodon or something, I can't see these guys until I get really, really close. So you don't need to be as worried about them taking damage before the fighting starts. You saw Kroq Gar and the Feral Carnosaur come in and land a hit or two on the steam tank before the fighting started. You saw obviously the Chameleon Skinks screen out Carl with about 1,000 points worth of damage before he had even swooped down and attacked anything, which baited out an early regrowth, which could have been used in the late game there when he was, you know, narrowly escaped death from the hand of the gods. So I think that could have been a real game changer, having them, you know, just nestled in behind those great swords with the, you know, the mobility and the mass of the Empire Knights being able to screen out anything that came through. You know, I don't have anything flying, so I can't just fly over all the roadblocks that he's got. The infantry fight, you know, was a bit of a wash. I guess in the end, probably just the leadership of the Saurus Warriors held out. But, you know, the Red Crested Skinks got a reasonably good matchup against the Great Swords here. The Star Chamber Guardians probably didn't get full value, but did what they needed to do. And the Carnosaur and Kroq Gar just really had their, you know, they could go around, spread terror if they needed to. They routed off a couple of these units of knights numerous times. They put basically all of that damage into the steam tank. And that steam tank got a regrowth as well. So a really interesting decision by my opponent. I think it was pretty crucial to winning that game. There were just a lot of little flow-on effects from that probably put the game in my favour early. And there probably just wasn't enough to bring it back. And you saw even late in the game, you know, how many of those shots when he potentially could have got some damage in on Kroq Gar, when Kroq Gar joined the sort of pit fight there, were being blocked by the trees. So an interesting battle. Obviously fun to play a Lord that unfortunately doesn't see as much play anymore. He used to be an absolute world beater, right up there with sort of like Kolek and Durthu, but I guess given the power of the Slans and I guess Mazdamundi and that, you don't see a lot of play with Kroq Gar anymore. But yeah, he'll always be an OG baller in this game, and had a few good targets in this matchup with his Feral Carnosaur buddy. So thanks for watching. Fun game. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care.